Right. The latest example, this week's New York Post article that alleged wrongdoing by Hunter Biden, but was blocked by Twitter and Facebook. Let's bring up my guest tonight, Satyajeet Marar from Young Voices, who's back up late with me on the Final Five. Good to see you again.
Hey, good to be here.
Okay, so first of all, for people who aren't aware of what Section 230 is, it effectively acts as a legal shield for technology companies. Is that really the broadest way I can describe it?
Well, it is a legal shield for technology companies, but more importantly, it allows for the maintenance of these places as being platforms for other people's views. So what you see happening is when someone posts content on Facebook or on Twitter, the platforms themselves are not legally liable for the stuff that these people say. And that in that manner, we actually encourage a more free and open internet. At the end of the day, if your problem with Facebook is that they suppress people's opinions too much, modifying a law that actually discourages them from doing that as much as they otherwise could or would is probably not a good idea, especially if you're from the conservative side of the fence.
So there was a parallel that many people have drawn, particularly on the left, because it primarily are some prominent Republican senators, Josh Hawley, for one of them of Missouri, who's been beating this drum for a while. And there was the high-profile case here in the U.S. in Colorado a couple of years ago where there was a private bakery where they said, we're not going to bake a cake for a gay wedding, and that caused a Supreme Court uproar. There was a case, the bakery won. And some people are saying, well, why would people who promote free enterprise, free markets, want to step up government control or government supervision of technology companies?
Look, I think it makes political sense to attack these companies because they're seen as being boogeymen. They're not perceived to have a very conservative culture. And well, it's true that there have been moderation decisions in the past to suppress content that was, in fact, conservative. But the issue is what the solution they're actually proposing here, which is more government regulation. That's actually going to fire right back at them if it actually happens. It takes millions of dollars to run these moderation teams, and even then they often make the wrong decisions. And it's actually only going to entrench the monopoly of these big companies when you have more regulation. But further to that is the fact that every single time these companies have tried to censor supposedly conservative speech and news stories, it has drawn more attention. It has helped rally the base of conservative voters. I mean, Josh Hawley is now the poster boy of Section 230. I don't think he would have nearly as much media presence, to be honest with you, if it weren't for this major hot button issue. But the worst thing that they can do right now is to actually get rid of this section. I think it makes more sense for them to keep attacking it without actually doing anything. Because let's face it, people like Ben Shapiro and other conservative commentators, while they might complain about being shadow banned and so on, they've built up bigger audiences than the New York Times and CNN.
Right.
Using these platforms. They could not do that on old media.
When you look at the breakdown on a day-to-day basis of the number of posts, the most well-performing posts on Facebook, generally they are some of the people you mentioned, Ben Shapiro, I believe Joe Rogan occasionally on that list as well. But, it's about an exchange of ideas here. We know that the FCC chair, Ajit Pai, said he would act on President Trump's executive order. This was all brought about by that article this week about Hunter Biden, about his interactions or alleged interactions with Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company. I will say, when you look at the companies deciding to step in and saying, okay, we're going to block people from sharing these articles, it does put off an unmistakable glow of favoritism when there are other stories out there that have been critical about President Trump that don't necessarily, that these standards, so to speak, aren't enforced.
Yeah, you're right. And look, Senator Hawley had a good point when he said, if Twitter said they only suppressed the New York Post story because it involved hacked emails, and yet they didn't do the same thing when Trump's tax returns got leaked. I think he's got a very good point there. That is an inconsistency. I'm not, we don't know exactly why, but it's entirely fair to call that out. But keep in mind, right, that New York Post story, I don't think it would have half the coverage that it has been getting if Twitter did not try to suppress it. I think that they've kicked a massive own goal and they're only hurting themselves. I'm not going to stand up here and say, if you don't like Twitter, build your own social media platform. But what I will say, though, is that every single time these platforms have tried to, have been perceived to play favoritism, it has always only hurt them. It has only enabled and supported conservative campaigns.
Satyajeet Marar, good to see you again.
Likewise.
Final Five back after this.